That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Ramey. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. If you're looking for ways to quit drinking, you can go to thatsoberguy.com. You can check out our courses, mastermind groups, one-on-one coaching options. You can also schedule a 30-minute strategy session with me. We can talk about your goals. I can answer any questions that you might have. And hear what you're looking to do. You're looking to quit drinking, improve as a father, improve as a husband, a leader in your community, an entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever that looks like for you. I know that one of the biggest decisions I made in my life was giving up alcohol, and that just changed the whole trajectory of my life. And so wanted to share a little bit about that today. The title of today's podcast, the top 5 things you need to know to quit drinking alcohol and level up your business. First and foremost, also be sure to follow us on Instagram at That Sober Guy podcast as well. I want to make sure you guys know you can message, follow, like, all that good stuff on there. We appreciate you guys supporting us there. And then we'll put any links from today's show in the show notes for you. But yes, I just celebrated 11 years alcohol-free this week. So pretty excited about that. Just want to say thank you to my family, to my wife, to my kids, to my mother, my mother-in-law, and the Matthews family, and just everybody, my friends, mentors, Buddy C, there's so many people, Seth. Man, I love you guys, and I just appreciate everybody's support along the way in these last 11 years, which is crazy to me that it's even been that long. So just appreciate you guys, and thank you to all of you for supporting the podcast. And as the podcast is kind of morphed into this sober platform that's now heard millions of times all over the world, and it's allowing me opportunities to coach other men now in how to better themselves and how to be better fathers and better husbands and better entrepreneurs and business owners, and most importantly, how to have a spiritual relationship with God. And I guess I shouldn't say how to have, because that's something that I'm still walking in daily, but more or less being an encouraging person, an accountability person, and helping men set goals and realize that there's more to this life than just the world that we live in. And so I've just been so blessed for God to bless me with the sobriety, the peace of mind, the sober mind, a beautiful family, and then this awesome platform which just gives me so much purpose day in and day out. And that's why I've continued to do it over 10 years now. So it's just pretty awesome. And man, I can't say it enough. Thank you again. I love you guys. And I just wanted to mention that before we get into the show today. So the top 5 things you need to know to quit drinking alcohol and level up your business. And let me give you those top 5 things. And then I wanted to make one more announcement real quick. I should have done that before, but it's important for future shows. So those top 5 things is spiritual connection. Number 1, number 2, community, number 3, purpose, number 4, accountability, number 5, goal setting. So those top 5 things, it's not rocket science. It's not anything that's super like fabulous, sexy, whatever you want to call it. Man, they're basic in a sense. They're very basic. And it's really been the foundation for me in setting up, starting a small business. Obviously giving up alcohol, trying to be a better father to my kids, and really find purpose in this short life that I'm leading. And these 5 things have just been crucial. They've really been at the center of all of it. So before we jump into those, let me just say one more announcement here. I'm trying to do sober shout outs at the first episode of every month, and then an Ask Me Anything episode at the end of the month. So if you have sober shout outs, you want to celebrate your day, I'd love to, I'll just use first names and maybe where you're from, and how long it's been since you last, picked up a drink, or how you're doing out there. Feel free to write a short little message. In the subject line, just put sober shout outs. And then for the Ask Me Anything, if you have a question, if you have a comment, if there's something that, you want to hear my take on, or you want to hear one of our former guests' take on, I can even reach out to some of that. I don't mind doing that at all. You can do the same thing. Subject line, Ask Me Anything, and then send the email to sobriety@thatsoberguy.com. And we'll get those, and we're able to field them and look through them and pick out the ones that, are great questions and are relevant to staying on top. Because we do get some goofy ones sometimes, so I can't read all of those. But sometimes I do. Sometimes they're hilarious. But man, would love to hear from you. Either one, sober shout outs, Ask Me Anything. So once again, sobriety@thatsoberguy.com. Send those emails over. We'll check those out for future shows. And we appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Okay, so top 5 things you need to know to quit drinking alcohol, level up your business. And this goes for you too. If you're not a business owner, that's okay. Maybe maybe you work for a company and you're a leader in that company, or you want to be a leader in that company. You want to advance. You want to find, the work that you do in not just enjoyable, but purposeful in a sense. So whether you're an entrepreneur trying to start a business, whether you already have a business, whether it's huge, whether it's small, or whether you're working for a company, maybe you have a future, desire to start a business from the work you're doing now. I mean, this applies to everybody. So just keep that in mind. Just if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not a business owner yet. Well, maybe you will be, maybe you want to be, maybe you don't want to be at all. You just want to continue doing what you're doing. This all kind of falls into the same thing, and finding purpose and how we kind of navigate through the day to day. And that's what these 5 kind of pillars of this foundation are here. So number 1, spiritual connection. I had Jesus on here first, and then I changed it. I said, well, maybe not everybody listening to this is Christian. So, and that's fine. I'm not one of those people who shoves my beliefs down anybody's throat. So that's for, you to figure out, and for you, that's between you and God. That's between you and your spiritual connection. And I'm just okay with that. But for context terms, I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian. I'm going to talk from my experience in that aspect. So just know that. When I thought about this first, I want to share a little bit about my experience here, and how this was really the tip of the spear for me, changing my life and going down a different path, and God guiding me in that direction. I always go back to, like, I've heard people say, oh, well, what's your favorite scripture, or name a scripture or whatever. And man, there's so many of them. A lot of people think, the most common one, John 3:16, a great one, but I come back to Romans 3:2-3 often. And it says, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And man, it gives me chills even when I think about it, because it puts all of us human beings on the same level. We think that, in this world, there's all these levels of rich or poor or powerful or weak or, strong, or, just all these different levels of separation between human beings. And God says, no, that's really not the case. Like, you think you're perfect, you're not. You think you're so great, you're not. You think you're so important, you're not, because all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So we're not saved by our works. We're not saved by doing more and doing better and serving more and giving more. And we want to do those things, no doubt. But at the end of the day, God's grace is what saves us. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. So we don't get better by necessarily doing more. Is it a good thing to do what we can? Absolutely. Should we serve? Absolutely. Should we help others? Absolutely. I believe that's really the true reason that we're here. And at the end of the day, though, we've all been jacked up. We're all jacked up, like in some sense or another. And every day is a new day, and every day is a grind. And that's why I always come back to that die daily. So if you, and I guess here's my point to that too. This is really the point that I wanted to make with that, is that I find that men, especially, who maybe they've had a bad religious experience as a kid, they were raised in a certain religion, they were, they had someone in a leadership role, whether it was in their own home or whether it was in a church, that hurt them in some way, whether it's spiritually, physically, emotionally. And so we've ran from God. We've ran away. We've oh gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. I couldn't hit the cough button there. I'm trying to get over this congestion and cold that I've had for like over a week now. So my apologies. I'll try to hit that cough button next time, cough in your ear like that. But I have found that, and there's this separation, and this actually even comes in men's groups or 12-step groups. There can get to be this legalistic religious aspect that people are either afraid or they don't want to go to. They don't want to come into. They don't want to be a part of that. For maybe there's past things like I mentioned, or maybe they've heard things about it and they just don't. Maybe even church. They don't want to go because the religious people or whatever. And I totally get that. And I just want to say that there's a huge difference between a relationship with God and religion. Do I have it all figured out? Absolutely not. So please don't let me fool you here. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just simply sharing that there's a huge difference. And I would ask every dude out there listening, especially if you're one who has some doubt about this stuff, this whole spirituality thing or the spiritual connection. I'm just thinking in my head, we had a counselor when I was getting some help back in the day, and his name was David, this big old dude, and he'd say, "We're going to get spiritual. We're going to get spiritual right now." I think about that sometimes and laugh. But yeah, we're getting spiritual in life, because here's the thing. The separation between flesh and spirit is a real thing. And if we're not walking, or if we're not attempting to consciously walk in the spirit on the daily, we're going to fall victim to the world 100%. And I'm guilty of it often in all types of different ways, whether it is the words that I speak or the thoughts that I have or the actions that I take. Man, there's a huge, huge difference of being in line in the spirit and walking in that daily and being stuck in the world. And it's not about perfection. God knows that we're not perfect. And that comes back to that Romans 3:2-3, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Like, it doesn't matter. We're imperfect, but perfection is the enemy of excellence. And I know you've heard me say that before, and it's not like I coined that. I heard that, a long time ago, but it's still one that's very close to me in my own struggle with perfection and striving to be perfect at everything. And even down to, we're at church this weekend and the pastor there, it's a new church for us. We're checking out. Great spot. But he mentioned about the perfection and trying to do all things. And he mentioned the lawn, a guy's lawn, right? Like, how many of you out there listening just love a nice tight lawn? Like, it looks so good. Maybe you mow it at an angle so you get the lines in there, and man, that thing looks so damn good, and you love it, and you take a lot of pride in it. That's me, man. I love that. I love having the lawn just so nice and so perfect. And it's really a terrible illustration of my own life, like in a lot of ways, because, or maybe it is an illustration of my struggle for perfection. That's a new one. I haven't even thought about that too. Now I'll have to think more about that. That's why I love this stuff, man. It brings lots of open thoughts and critical thinking in the moment sometimes. But I guess what I'm getting at, that was just an example of the perfection that we strive for, whether it's your lawn, whether it's your, the work you do, trying to be a parent, whatever it is that you do, we struggle with that a lot of the times. I know I do, at least. And God says, no, I don't want you to be perfect. I just want you to do your best. And I want you to show mercy. I want you to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Ask for forgiveness, really, too. Like, repent for the things that we've done and move on and learn from those mistakes. We don't have to beat ourselves up over and over and over. But we also have to take an honest look at how we're walking through the day. Is it in the spirit? Is it in the flesh? Is it a mix of both? For most of us, it's that are really trying to live a better life and walk in the spirit. We try to do the best we can, but man, sometimes they intertwine. And so what I'm getting at here is that die daily mentality and that spiritual connection. It's so different than religion. It's so different when you actually pick the word up and read it and it jumps off the pages to you and you go, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. I didn't even think of that. I didn't think of it like that before. So before we move on to number 2, let me kind of bring this back together because I feel like I'm a little bit all over. That's just because there's a lot of things to talk about on this topic. I could go on forever with it. But a couple things on the spiritual connection. It's been a huge part for me. Long story short, when I was about to get sober, I had let the cat out of the bag. I was on a walk. I was having the enemy was just destroying my mind, just telling me all kinds of crazy things. I didn't need help. You didn't need to get sober. Quit being a punk. And I went on this walk and I found this Bible in the middle of the road and I walked past it and I heard something say, go pick it up. And I went back and picked it up. And in that moment, God spoke to me in that moment and just changed my life right there. And it was go, you're doing the right thing. I have a plan for your life, basically, is what I felt and heard and thought. And it was the most amazing thing. And so I did. I went and got help. And man, that was 11 years ago, which is crazy to me. And, it's been a whole process and a whole journey, and it still is by the day. But here's what I want to tell you. If you struggle with God, or if you struggle with religion, or if you struggle with this whole spirituality thing, it's just give it a chance. Give God a chance to work in your life. It's not about going and trying to be perfect and showing up to church and trying to put the church face on and do all the right things and serve 7 days a week and, do everything perfect. It's just not, that's not what it's about. It's about a relationship with you and God, period. And read the word and see what happens there. Start in Ecclesiastes. I tell a lot of guys that. I had a friend of mine when I first got sober. I was doing some work, and it's my buddy Tim. And Tim, was so awesome. He had a small business at the time doing construction, and he gave me a job, as I was trying to kind of get back on my feet. And another buddy that I was working with, was kind of speaking into me a little bit. And he said, man, pick up the book and read Ecclesiastes in there. And it really spoke, he said it speaks to a lot of men. And it did. It spoke to me in that moment. It's still one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. So I'd highly suggest, and recommend that, excuse me, if you're going to read, it's a short book too, but it's really good in there. Written by Solomon, the smartest man in the universe and the world. At least that's what he, was told and thought, and he was. But that's why it's really interesting to read, from his perspective on the things of this world versus the things of an everlasting, eternal life. So, anyways, man, just that spiritual connection been huge for me. It can be a foundation for you. I promise. If you're battling these worldly things that most of us dudes battle on the daily, it's like freaking dodging arrows every day. Boom, boom, boom. I'm just man, all kinds of crazy things coming at. And when I come back to God being the anchor, man, hey, check that out. Just the anchor on, if you're watching, the anchor on my hand there, the tattoo, that's what that is. And that is my anchor. And it could be your anchor too, in whichever way that works for you. But what I will say is the book is the truth. And that's a great place to start. Okay. So I don't even know if I hit all the points I wanted to. I'm just kind of freestyling on this, which is what I love. But let's move on to community. So we had spiritual connection, the top 5 things you need to know to quit drinking alcohol, level up your business. Well, and okay, gosh, I always do this. I apologize. Don't apologize. Don't say sorry. It's a sign of weakness. That's what goes on in my head too. Don't apologize. It's a sign of weakness. Only apologize if you mean it. Those people are just oh, I'm sorry. It just drives me crazy. So don't apologize unless you need it. So I'm sorry for apologizing to you. I'm sorry for apologizing. Dang it. Okay. I want to say one more thing with relate to business entrepreneurship. Man, you're going to find that so many people, so many entrepreneurs, so many people that own businesses have some sort of spiritual connection in their own right to God, to something higher. Because man, being a business owner is scary. Growing a business, jumping out from the corporate game to a small business is scary. It's nuts, man. And entrepreneurship, scary. All types of things, when you're a high performing person who has, is driven, there's a lot of fear involved in that, and so you'll find these connections with other people, who have these spiritual connections. And it's a great way to, to have some of the things, community, purpose, accountability, goal setting that we're going to talk about right now. So moving into community, what does community look like? There's all types of different ways that you can find groups that you can share similar values. You can set goals. If you're specifically speaking to professionals, to small business owners, entrepreneurs, you can become part of networks, groups that support your sobriety and at the same time, your business ambitions. And you're like, how do you do that? Well, man, like I just mentioned, there's so many people who are entrepreneurs, who are business owners, who are part of different networks, different groups in the church, out of the church, 12-step groups, all types of people that you can connect with and make these, and start to build these relationships with. You can look for industry-specific associations or organizations that offer networking opportunities and support. And I'll give you like an easy example is like the Chamber of Commerce, right? Like if you're in your local city, they'll have like a chamber and they usually have chamber meetings. Or I know even in Solano County, they have it's Young People's Business Association, I think is what it is. And so it's basically like business owners, people who are parts of businesses who join that are like under 40, basically. Damn it. So I guess that discludes me. I just realized I still feel like I'm so young, Isn't it funny too, how like if I walked up to, if I ran into like a 20-year-old and I was talking to him and he's like, oh, I'm 43. And he's like, damn, you're old. And then, but if I'm talking to, say I'm talking to a gentleman and he's like 83 and he's like, oh, you're so young. You got your whole life ahead. And I think it's a great example of perspective. Like everything is about perspective, no matter if it's age, what we're doing, like it's all about perspective. We keep good perspective on things. So I'm going to choose to go with the 83-year-old guy's thing. That's like, you're so young. You got your whole, I'm not listening to the 20-year-old. He can piss off, man. Screw him. I'm trying to stay in my prime at least. But in any case, okay, back to community. What does that look like for you? I know for me, community has been so big, so huge. I've met so many great people through the podcast, through the Sober Guy platform, from conferences, through podcasting, through meetings. It's been an amazing, amazing time, these last 10 years to meet people and to network with people and build relationships with people. And man, unfortunately, we've lost some people along the way too, and so there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of spiritual connection, in all of that goes on. But it's just a great way, to find, I guess, yourself amongst other people and find how you can add value to them and how they can add value to you. And it's kind of a give and take type of thing. And when you have that community, when it's solid, when it is, when you can rely on it, and man, it's so much better than trying to do this life on your own. And I don't know how people do. I don't know how I did it. I did it for a long time on my own. Actually, I do know how I do it. I did it by numbing out, that's the only way I did it. And that really wasn't doing much. It was just kind of existing. So community, such an important part. You can join different groups, 12, like I mentioned, 12-step groups. There's men's groups at your local church. There is all types of different, like I mentioned, the Chamber of Commerce, all those types of things you can look in your area to become a part of and find other people. I guarantee you in a lot of those groups, I mean, obviously the 12-step ones are a given, but even in some of the outside ones, you are going to find some people who do not drink. You're probably going to find a lot to do still. So just don't be surprised, but you will run into people, especially since this whole movement of people giving up alcohol is just growing like crazy. You're going to start to see there's a lot more people than you think out there that don't drink anymore, for one reason or another. All right, let's move in to purpose, discovering purpose. So what is purpose, and I would equate purpose to your why. Like, what is your why? What is the reason behind the goals you set, the actions that you take? What fuels you? Like, what motivates you? Like, what is What do you want to do? And I think that purpose was a big motivating factor for me when I was like, the only thing I can think of is like ping ponging. I was going back and forth, on this table. Like I was the ping pong ball just getting blasted back and forth because like I had this ambition and I had this gut feeling, had a couple gut feelings. Number one, I had a gut feeling that God had something more for my life and that he had a plan for my life. And I definitely wasn't living up to that in the current state that I was in when I was making all the bad decisions and using alcohol and substances as a tool to deal with life, right? I also had another gut feeling that if I didn't make a change really soon, something really bad was going to happen because I was making some pretty bad decisions at the time. And so the purpose piece of that, to kind of tie that in, that was a huge part of it because I really did feel like there was something more out there and I wanted to explore what that was. And it wasn't just an external thing in the world. It was actually an internal thing where I knew I wasn't learning about my true self. I didn't know who I was because I hadn't allowed myself to grow in a sober-minded mentality. And in having myself as like a young man, like coming into my 20s and then coming into my 30s, like I was just partying that whole time. And so I was really stunted in a sense, like my growth, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, definitely physically. I was skinny fat. Talked about that on one of the previous episodes. It's not in any type of shape in any of those most important areas: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. Like no fitness relevance to any of those categories at the time. Just completely numb to life and going the day to day, trying to like pay bills, which I could barely do. And I knew though that there was more to this life, even when I was stuck in that consistent cycle. And what was that? Like discovering my purpose. Like how do you do that? And so for me, I knew that the first step in that was kicking alcohol and other substances. Cigarettes was another one too. I smoked a lot. Oh, she tastes like cigarettes. I can't say the word cigarettes without trying to do a terrible impersonation of Forrest Gump. But cigarettes, all kinds of stuff. But the main focal point was always alcohol. That was always the thing that was there. And it was really stunting my whole growth period. And in order to find some purpose, I needed to cut that out. All right, I'm going to hit the cough button this time. Good Lord. Man, I hope this thing goes away. It's so absolutely annoying. It's so annoying. My daughter said that the other day. I said, excuse me, do you know that you don't have to pronounce the G in annoying, right? It's just annoying. You don't have to say annoying. Please don't pronounce the G in your words. Okay. So discovering purpose, back to some kind of actionable steps with that. What truly matters to you? What are your core values and beliefs? And then how do they align with your personal goals and with your business goals? And here's what I would recommend in this is taking out get your old yellow pad out and your pen, or if you got your notes on your phone or your Mac or whatever you use, write out what your why is. Like just ask that question. What is my why? Okay. And remember, you can title it Discovering Purpose, and then what is my why? What are my core beliefs and how do they align with my goals? And I'll give you an example. Like my core beliefs, like I have 5 of them. It's faith, family, fitness, vocation, and finance. Like those are my 5 categories that I've set aside that I try to put everything of importance in my life into. Those are the 5 things. And there's kind of subcategories in each one, but those are the ones that if I have to make a decision on something that's tough, I can always come back to my core values and I can go, does it align with one of those core values that is me, basically, that is my purpose, it is my drive, all that stuff. And if it doesn't, then no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put effort into it. I'm going to pivot, make an adjustment there. So that's a really good exercise you can do. Discovering purpose. What is your why? And then, some more actionable steps to that, creating a mission statement that aligns with your personal goals, with your business goals. What is your mission statement? And then most importantly, here's the other, this is a really important part of this too. When you do this stuff, when you write these things down, make sure you set time aside to go back and review them and look them over, because that's when it kind of sounds dumb, the magic happens. It's when the magic happens, man. But it is like when and here, a better way to do that is to post it up. Like post it up by where you brush your teeth, by where your wall is, like where you wake up in the morning, put it on the wall so you see it. That is a great spot to do. I just helped a client do this recently, in talking through some things in his own struggles, and like what were those, top things that, I think it was his why. Like what's his why, the pros and the cons and the why, and then write those out and put them up every day so you can see them. And I know this works because I've done it personally. I've done it in my own walk, trying to stay sober. And then I also did it with fitness too. Like my calendar, I don't have to do it so much now just because it's just the way that I kind of live my life. It's not as needed. But when I was trying to get back on track, like if I've fallen off track on days, let's just say going to the gym, like I would literally post my calendar up right by my bed, and I would map out my whole month on every single day that I was going to hit the gym. And then I would just X it off as I did it. And the visualization of that, the action, like an actionable step of taking a pen and doing it. And then once I got a little momentum, the first couple of days, boom, I was hitting every day. It was no problem. And it just built up this tolerance and this kind of calloused mindset to be very disciplined in going to the gym. The only time I usually don't go is if I'm sick. Like last week, I was not feeling good for a couple of days and I couldn't go. And it drives me crazy too. I still try to go, and I probably shouldn't, or at least walk or something, but I'm trying to learn like, hey, you got to rest too. You're not going to make anything better if you just try to push too hard, because I do sometimes, which is not always a bad thing, but we have to rest definitely. So case in point, make sure you schedule some time to look at, go over your things or post them where you can see them. Okay. Accountability. Another huge one here, the role of accountability. So accountability is going to be huge in every aspect, especially goal setting, especially when, let's just say, for instance, you're trying to quit drinking, right? And you want to get 30 days. So what do you have that's holding you accountable? Do you have a group? Do you have, are you going through a program? Do you have a mentor, a friend, a sponsor? Like, what is it? Is it your wife, your husband, whatever? But accountability is huge, and it's such an important part of this as well. So whether we're talking business goals or whether you're talking stay away from alcohol goals, you have to have somebody or a group to hold you accountable. One of the things we do at the end of each mastermind session is in coaching sessions that I've been in before, and on both ends of the spectrum, coaching myself and then being coached, as well as on the mastermind perspective, like hosting the mastermind and then just being a part of it, is the accountability piece at the end. So like, let's say I set a goal, like, hey, I'll just use fitness again. It's the first thing that comes to mind. Like I'm going to get in 4 days of weightlifting this week, and I'm going to get a walk in every night after dinner for 20 minutes. Okay, cool. Well, here it is. We jot that down. Boom. You just set that goal. I better write it down too. And then the following week, when I meet again with my mentor, my mastermind, my coach, my sponsor, whatever that looks like, they're going to ask me, hey, Shane, did you meet your goal? Did you hit your 4 weightlifting sessions, and did you hit your walk, every day after dinner for 20 minutes? Trust me, nobody wants to be the dude who's like, oh man, no, I didn't do it. I didn't do it because and don't get me wrong, occasionally like shit happens. I get it. Sometimes things come up. Back to the perfection thing. I am a believer in that. I'm not just, talking out of it. Like we're not perfect, but man, for the most part, there's usually, unless something wild comes up, you should be able to hit your goals that you set, as long as they're, somewhat realistic and you didn't get sick, terribly sick, or, a death in the family, something crazy like that. Like you should hit your goals. And if those things don't take place, like nobody wants to be that guy. And so it's such a huge, huge part the accountability piece, and I probably should have put goal setting before accountability because that's next, but you have a lot of different ways you can do that, but you have to have some sort of mentor, some sort of coach, some sort of support system in place, a group support, whether it is, 12-step or church or, mastermind group, whatever it is, that's going to be crucial to, to achieving those goals that you're going to set for yourself, because the accountability part is huge in that. And so I kind of is huge in that. And I kind of did this backwards. I probably should have done that first, but let's jump into goal setting. Goals provide direction and measurable outcomes. And so when we're not goal setting, it can be really difficult. We got a lot of ideas in our mind, a lot of crazy things going down. And then we have all these great ideas, but nothing ever comes to fruition because we don't have, they're not, we can't measure them basically. They're not on paper, or they're not visible. They're not, you're not seeing that visual and able to meet them. As crazy as that sounds, it's so powerful. So you have to have specific, measurable, achievable, and also in a good time frame in what your time frame is to set those goals. And so, that is what that accountability piece is going to hold for you too. So you map those goals out, and then you're going to come back and have that accountability piece to help attain those goals and take actionable steps to work towards those goals, if they're long-term goals or short-term goals, whatever. But let me just kind of rewind here. These are some of the things that we do in coaching sessions, in mastermind groups, in 12-step groups, in working with other people, men's groups. And that is the power of community. That is the power of accountability. That is the power of goal setting, whether it's in business, whether it's in your personal life. You just want to, improve on being a better dad. You want to be more present. You want to be in the moment when you're tucking your kids in and praying with them and reading a little bit to them. That's something I've been having to really work on, man, because I struggle with that. I'm tired at the end of the day. I don't feel good. I've been going through some different health stuff in the last couple of months, and it's just I guess that's your 40s, you start coming through that. But I've found myself rushing sometimes to go to bed at night and hurry up to get the tuck in and, and the quick prayer and I love you. And I mean, that's good. I'm still making an effort, but it's not good because it's not the full scope for me that I want to, or the full scope. I don't know. That's a stupid word to use, I think, for that, but it's just not what I want to do. I want to be better at that. I want to put more effort and time into that and be in the moment in that. And so that's something that I am, working on personally and having to write down and set a goal for and all that kind of stuff that we're talking about. So the goal setting thing is huge, also balancing your immediate priorities with the long-term goals. That's another one. So those are things that we can work on. And these are things that community help us achieve. And, that is why, community is at the top of this list too, because these kind of fall back to having that support. So, okay, what was our last one? Goal setting. Let me see. Let me go through these one more time. I'm a little bit all over the place. So we had spiritual connection, community, purpose, accountability, goal setting. Shoot, we did go through all of them. Okay. Well, there it is. And I know I was a little all over the place. I took some bullet points and some notes and stuff. But I just kind of freestyle through some of this stuff sometimes too. So apologies. Don't apologize. It's a sign of weakness. Once again, damn it. Dang it. Stop apologizing, Raymer. The mind is crazy. Crazy. I hope something spoke to you today. I hope this was helpful to you, to go through some of this stuff. And I think if I kind of tie it all up together, that spiritual connection, that community, finding that purpose. What is your why? If I had one takeaway for you today in all of this, I would say that would be it. Find your purpose first. What is your why? Write that out. Set it up so you look at it all the time. And the rest of these can kind of fall into exactly where they need to be surrounding that purpose. And I promise you, God has a purpose for you. He has a purpose for everyone. I 100% believe that. And the separation, unfortunately, between God and man is, that there's not that surrender. There's not that surrender. And Jesus provides us with that bridge to bridge that gap. And man, I love that so much. The more that I sit in that, and I've realized, maybe someone listening is going, what did he just say? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm either batshit crazy or I'm 100% right. And I'm going to go with I'm 100% right on that. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Take that purpose thing, write it down, check it out every day. Goal setting, accountability, community, purpose, spiritual connection, all good stuff. And it's all going to help in your personal life, in your business life, in networking, in relationships. I mean, everything is relationship at the end of the day. Everything's relationship. So there's just some great tips and great things you can learn if you step out and you show up. That's the biggest thing. Just show up. Remember those 3 words, because sometimes we don't want to show up. Just show up. It can be difficult sometimes, but if you just show up and you let God work, it's the other 3, let God work, man, he will. He will. It's crazy what can happen. If you're looking for ways to quit drinking, you can go to thatsoberguy.com. We have some courses on there. We have some mastermind groups we're going to be starting up here soon. So I'd love if you'd like to apply for that. We have a few spots open still. You can check that out there, fill out a quick form, just a couple quick questions, and you can send that in. And I personally review them and check them out, and we'll set up some time to chat. You can also book one-on-one coaching. You can do that with you just do the 30-minute strategy session with me. We can talk about what goals you have, what you're looking to do, how I might or might not be able to help you. I can't help everybody. I mean, I do my best, but sometimes it's not a good fit. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes someone just needs some professional help. Sometimes, like a doctor, they need to go to 12-step. Like I'm here to help. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's not just like, I don't know what is the best path for everybody. I know what's worked well for me, and I love sharing that. I love sharing what's worked. I love sharing what hasn't worked. And I'll continue to do that until God says otherwise. So appreciate you guys tuning in today. Thank you again. I hope something spoke to you. Connect us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. Peace, love, and respect. Stay tuned for Mike Diamond as well, coming out Friday. Keep your blood clean.